And we are following both President Biden's visit to Atlanta to meet with Asian American leaders, as well as new developments in the investigation of the spa shootings that left 8 people dead, including 6 women of Asian descent. With us now are former federal prosecutor Shan Wu and former Philadelphia Police Commissioner Charles Ramsey. Great to see you both, gentlemen. I'm going to start with you, Shan. Even though this hasn't been deemed a hate crime, many of the victims were Asian women, as I just said. What conversations are likely happening behind the scenes right now to determine any additional charges and what kind of investigation this should be?
I think they're probably, of course, looking at computer records, social media, and the like. And I actually, have to say that I really disagree that there's not enough evidence right now to charge a hate crime, because the Georgia statute, which I think the prosecutors need to take a look at, say that it's either going to be based on the count of sex or on race. And 8 of the murder victims are women, and 6 of them are Asian. So I think you've got that probable cause there right now, and more evidence is great of lots of things, including more motive. But it's really strategically helpful to charge the hate crime, because to show that motive, as the chief knows, there's a lot of evidence that might otherwise not be admissible that you can bring in to show that motive.
And what do you think about that, Charles? I mean, this shooting, as we know, is just the latest in a string of anti-Asian attacks over this past year. Do you think the handling of this case sets the tone nationally for addressing that type of hate?
Well, first of all, I mean, there has been a significant rise in hate crimes directed toward Asian Americans and others of Asian descent. I mean, this is absolutely terrible to see these kinds of things taking place in our country. This particular case, I'm sure that right now they're combing through all of his computer records, interviewing witnesses, doing everything they can to produce enough evidence to convince a prosecutor to place charges. I'm not an attorney. I don't have a file with me. I don't know what they have right now. Clearly, from the outside looking in, it certainly looks that way. I would be leaning in that direction. But it's not over yet. I mean, just because they haven't done it yet doesn't mean that they ultimately won't do it. I think that if there's a possibility, if the evidence is there, then they will present that to a prosecutor for the appropriate charges.
So, Shan Wu, last night the FBI director weighed in. Let's listen to what he had to say about it.
And while the motive remains still under investigation, at the moment it does not appear that the motive was racially motivated. But I really would defer to the state and local investigation on that for now.
What would it take to determine that the motivation was racially motivated? What is the threshold there, and how crucial is it in your view to determine that motivation here?
Yeah, the problem, Pam, is that the threshold is no different than for any other charge. It's just probable cause. They had probable cause to arrest him for the murders. They would have probable cause to indict him in the grand jury for those. And the plain evidence in front of us is he's selected women and he's selected Asians. So I respectfully disagree with the FBI director. He's, of course, deferring to the state. But that's one of the problems, Pam, is that prosecutors have been reluctant to utilize the hate crimes that are on the statute. And if you don't use a law that's there, you really end up erasing that law.
But why are they reluctant? Why is that, you think?
Well, I think that's a complicated answer. First of all, there's a conservative aspect of being afraid to try something new when you're trying to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in the courtroom. So they're a little bit risk averse that way. And also, I hate to say this, but there's implicit racism that permeates the culture. So looking at, for example, those terrible remarks by that spokesperson, he was really sounding like he was almost sympathizing with the defendant. And there's already kind of a stereotype of Asian women perhaps being sex trade workers, as though sex workers deserve less protection. But there's a lot of stereotyping going on that devalues the lives of people of color.
All right, Shan Wu, Charles Ramsey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And right now,